Let me introduce you to our next person. We have a small AV to play before she comes up on stage. Har subah bas utho mat, jago re. The creator of the country's most iconic brands, Tata Tea, Maggi, and Barbie, is here with us. A wife, a mother, and a highly successful career woman. Please welcome Sangeeta Talwar, Managing Partner, Flyvision Consulting, LLP. Sangeeta, lovely to have you here. Let's have you up on stage. Stage is all yours.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. You've had a really active morning. Yeah? I hope I can keep that tempo alive. So, this is probably less fun than the music you heard this morning and the dancing. Because this is going to be about all of us and what we do and what we want to aspire to and what we hope to achieve in our lives. I wanted to quickly tell you, I've spent 30 plus years working. I started working many, many years ago once I finished my business management education out of IIM Calcutta. And I had this wonderful opportunity to work with very large, very good companies to build some beautiful brands. I don't know how many of you don't eat Maggi 2-minute noodles. Hands up who doesn't eat Maggi 2-minute noodles. Good, I'm glad. Okay, so we launched this in 6 January 1983. And I worked with the brand for many years. And then I went on to do many different roles in Nestle. And what I want to do today is I want to talk to you about some of my journey. And this, actually, you can read about this in my book, which I have just published through Penguin Random House. It's called The 2-Minute Revolution, The Art of Growing Businesses. And I'll quickly tell you why I wrote the book, so that you don't have to ask me that question. But if you remember, I'll take you back to June 2015. And there was a day, I think it was 2nd of June, where suddenly there was a lot of negative advocacy pulling down the Maggi brand. And in 48 hours, I saw a brand built over 30 years being destroyed. A brand which I had helped to build with a lot of care and a lot of affection was suddenly going down the tubes. And I thought to myself, somebody should write that story of how this brand was created. And that was the thought that cemented the idea of actually doing this book. But as I was writing it, I thought to myself that there are more stories here that I'd like to share. And so I put a lot of my stories, business stories, leadership lessons, anecdotes of my 30 years of working in corporate India. I'll quickly tell you the companies I worked for. I worked for Nestle, that was my first company. Then I worked with Mattel as the CEO for the South Asia operations. And then I went on to join Tata Tea. I was a director in Tata Tea Limited, and I used to run a third of the international business for Tata Global Beverages. And after that, I went away from the corporate sector, and I thought to myself, everybody just spends their life earning money, and one day you sign out, Kissa Kursi ka comes to an end, and you go, in a few years, you go away from planet Earth. So can I do something a little bit better than that, a little bit different from that? And so I stepped away from the corporate sector, and I went and joined a project, which was a very large project, to create milk companies using farmer equity money. So to create milk companies for the farmer, so that they could make profit out of milk, different from the cooperative model which you saw, which Dr. Kurian created in 1973. So I took over as managing director for NDDB Dairy Services, and this was a company that was funded with the help of World Bank to create the second milk revolution in the country. And very happy to tell you that I created two very large milk companies, which are producer companies. So the farmer is the owner of those companies. At the end of what I set out to create, we had created 2 companies with 3,000 crores as turnover, with 100,000 farmers who were members in these companies. And at the end of that, I sort of signed out from an active 24/7 role, but I still work. I woke up very early morning yesterday, had meetings the whole day yesterday in Bombay. So I'm a director in various companies, and I do a bit of writing, I do a lot of blah blah, I love to be at forums like this, because I think if there's something I can do to inspire you using my stories, I think that's great. Otherwise, what use are those stories, you know? They get buried in time. And thank you very much, Seri, for inviting me. I'm very, very happy to be here. And thank you, SHEROES. I think this is an amazing platform. So I'm sure I will be involved in many other things with you. So let me begin. I don't know how much time I have, and I don't want you to get bored. So I'll try to make it a little interactive. You may find that I'm doing a lot of one-way talking at some points in time. That's because I feel deeply about these issues. I often talk to groups of women, and usually they are not bored. So let's see how it goes today. What I want to call what I'm talking about today is dare to dream and dare to live up to your dream. I think dare to dream you've heard very often, but dare to live up to your dream. And the first thing there, the first point is you have to deal with the WWW. What's the WWW? No, it isn't. It is who, what, and why. And that, I think, is the most important question for all of us. It's not an easy question. Who, what do we value? What is dear to us in life? What are those areas that for us are non-negotiables? And what are the things that we want to do? What do we want to do? What do you want to do? What is in your mind's eye for yourself? Have you thought 10 years from now, what do you want to do? Who do you want to be? You know, yes, life will continue. You will meet somebody, you will get married, hopefully you will have children, you will have another family, you'll have more than your own family, etc., etc., etc. But have you given it some thought? So think about it. Think about what is it you want to do? Where do you want to be 10 years from now? Will you be happy being a great mom? That's a great aspiration. Never, never think otherwise, okay? Ask any man, can he be a great mom? No, he can be a great dad. But only you can be the great mom. So, do you want to be a great mom? Do you want to be an executive in a company doing some fabulous work, adding value to the company, creating value for consumers, earning some money, some prestige, fame, fortune, and family? Do you want both? Do you want to be a good mom, and do you want to be a very good professional? And you can do both. But the point is, you have to think of that yourself. What is it that you want to do? And why do you want to do it? Is it just because your dad insisted and you got yourself a degree and you're educated? Is it because you think you're, a very intelligent person, you'd like to contribute? Or you just want to be famous? You want to create something which no one's ever thought about before? I don't know which one it is, but all I can tell you is it helps if you spend some time to think for yourself, what do you want to be? And let me add, as you grow in life, that milestone is not fixed. It should change, because as you grow, you think different things, you become wiser, you become more mature. That goalpost may shift, and that's fine. But the important thing is that, are you conscious of it? That's the point. And when I was growing up, and I was telling my daughter the other day, I said, I wish I had somebody like myself talk to myself. I didn't have, you know. And it was a lonely journey. You just did things, what you thought, you did what you thought was best. And often it was not the best, but then you live with it, right? So the next point I want to make to you is life is full of choices. Life is full of choices. And what's the beauty about choices? You get to make the choice. So the important thing about choice is it should be your choice. And what does that do when it's your choice? What does it do? Sorry? Absolutely. When it's your choice, you are committed to making that choice, and therefore, it releases that extra special creative energy in you to actually go and do it. If it's someone else's choice, I can bet you'll spend a lot of time saying, that's not working. But if it's your choice and it's not working, whose onus is it? It's yours. And you then live with the consequences of that choice. You're not living with the consequences of someone else's choice. And there's a very important thing this does for you. Can someone tell me? The very important thing it does for you when it's your choice. You have ownership for it. It builds your confidence because you know what? You are shaping your own destiny. You are crafting your own future. You're not crafting a future set out by somebody else. So to me, actually, a lot of conversation around equality, gender diversity, gender equality is about recognizing that women have the opportunity to make their own choices and not choices imposed on them by corporates, societies, families, husbands, mothers-in-law, parents. Okay? And I think that you must have the confidence to actually make your own choice. Let me tell you, when you commit yourself to your choice and to what you want to do, you get there by hook or by crook. And I'll quickly tell you an anecdote from my life. When I first applied to join IIM Calcutta, in those days, they had only, I think, 7 rooms or 6 rooms for girls in the hostel. And I was a number just beyond that. I was either 7th or 8th on the All India list. So they denied me admission the first time I made it because they said, we don't have a room for you. Can you imagine making it into the IIM and being told we don't have a hostel room for you? So I said, doesn't matter, I live in the next village. I'll hire a room and I live there. They said, no, you have to live on campus. I said, well, maybe for a few months I will live from this village and then I'll move on to campus. They said, no, we don't have a room, we can't take you. And I was so disappointed. And for that next 1 year, fortunately for me, I studied. I joined MA in economics. And at the end of that year, I applied again. And I got in like a shot. I mean, at the interview, they were telling me, that, we are looking forward to having you on campus. They said it's unusual to see that kind of commitment, to go through all the tests again after a whole year. Not because I was not on the merit list, it's just that they didn't have the infrastructure to take me on as a student. So I did make it to the IIM, and if I hadn't, I wouldn't be here today. So thank you. Thank you for that. So what I want to say is, if you're committed to something, you are going to make it happen. And if it's your choice and you're committed to it, you can be very sure you're going to get there. Do great things before you're ready. There's no good time when you're ready. You're ready all the time, and we don't look at it like that. If somebody offers you a big job, you'll say, I'm not sure I can do it. But instead of doing that, say, I'm sure I can do it. Make the same offer to a man, he said, no problem. He might be dying inside, wondering how he's going to tackle it. Okay? But you say, oh, no problem. Fantastic idea, I can do it. But the women will not say that. They'll say, I'm not so sure, let me think about it. Because they'll worry. How much extra time will be required? What will I be required to do? How will my family manage without me? The kid is still young. Mom-in-law is not feeling well. I don't know. A million considerations. A million considerations. But if you actually want to do great things before their time, you need to put your hand up and say, I can do it. Now, once you have said I can do it, you know what? All the powers that be on earth, are going to fall into place to make it happen. And that's the other thing about making a choice and putting your hand up. It's important you focus on the big picture and focus on the largest piece of that puzzle and get that in place. Don't expect that every piece of the puzzle will fall in perfectly just at the time that you will it. It will not happen. Life is not like that. So pick what is most important and say, that's the stone I'm going to put down. That is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to try and let everything else fall into place, and it will. Okay? And as we talk through this morning, you'll get other ideas on how all those pieces can fall into place. So do great things. There's never a right time, and there's always a first time. How many CEOs who get appointed as CEOs actually go through 6 months of training before they're appointed as CEOs? Almost none. Almost none. So there's a day one for every CEO. And I think that's how you have to look at any challenge that you want to pick up. There's always a day one. I want to quickly mention here how I put my hand up. So I'd spent many years in marketing. I'd created, launched, established Maggi. But you know, I was the first woman executive that Nestle hired in Nestle India. So everybody was quite happy with status quo. Things were going well. The brand was doing brilliantly. But I was wondering, where am I going next? And no one was thinking about it. And I was business head for Maggi, and I wanted the next job that I wanted was regional head of sales. There were only 4 people who ran India for the entire business of Nestle. And it was said that those 4 jobs, running the 4 regions, North, South, East, West, were like mini managing director jobs because you were fully empowered to run your region. You were responsible for everything, people, business, targets, everything, the external world, the government, whatever. And I wanted that job. So I put my hand up and I went to my boss one day and I said, you know, that job's going to fall vacant. And have you ever considered giving that job to me? And he was taken aback because this is consumer business. You know, a large part of it is sales, which is out there in the street. And I hadn't done that. I had been in marketing. I used to travel a lot. I used to travel 1 week every month at a time when there was no food, there was no packaged water, there were no phones, there was 1 airline, and there were 2 models of cars in this country. Okay, that's all we had when I used to travel. But he was taken aback. But to his credit, he talked to HR and they, you know, worked a whole program for me. They said, you haven't done sales, so to put you as the head of sales for a whole region will lack credibility. There's an important lesson here. When you put your hand up for that kind of job, you've got to step into it with some credibility for yourself and credibility for the organization. Now, if they had put me in that job without putting me out into sales first, people would have lost confidence in the company and they would certainly have I would have gone with low credibility, having come off an excellent performance in the previous, 8, 9 years, okay? So to their credit, they actually put me out into sales. For a whole year, I was, you know, out there. I used to travel 26 days a month. I had a little child at home. And it was not easy, but it was I would say, my highest learning period. So I managed sales for a smaller region. And I traveled a lot in that period of about a year. But that's where I really learned a lot. Because, you know, you're on the spot. You have to get the target. You have to manage everything that goes around it, not getting your stocks in time, people in the trade coming back to you with a lot of issues and problems. A very large team that used to report in. I had 25 people reporting directly into me. It wasn't easy, but it was my best learning ground. And then I took over as regional manager for the north of India. I ran a quarter of the country's geography and the entire business of Nestle in that geography. And that was a first, of course. There were no women in sales at that point in time. Thank you. So I would say to you, set the bar high, be a shining star. And how do you do that? You need to build your competence, your capability, and your confidence. And how can you do that? You need to know your job. You need to know your job, and it's good if you can set the bar high and say, I'm going to be the best at it. Because other than you being then therefore acknowledged as a person who is an extremely good performer, I think what it does is a lot more for you. It gives you that confidence to stand up in front of anybody and say, I know that stuff. And I'm almost a master at it. Okay, so I think it's very good to build your own competence. And every time you move jobs, companies, levels, functions, teams, areas, you need to embark on that journey once again. Because I think it's very empowering for you to know what you're doing. And it works very well for the organization. Roll up your sleeves and work the trenches. And I truly believe this. I believe that if you want to rise to the top of an organization, you need to know where the business of that company is transacted. Then don't be in only a staff function. Don't only be in finance or HR. Be where the business is. And that's why I wanted to join sales in Nestle, because I said that's where the business is transacted, and I want to know everything about it. Okay, so I think it's important to try to do cross-functional roles. I know companies are not so open, but maybe you can help them to open their mind, to give you a cross-functional role, and that will really enhance the worldview that you have, because you look at the same business from a completely different perspective. And as a good leader, I think you can learn anything. So the other point I want to mention in being a shining star is please work with focus and focus and passion. Fabulous. There's a lot of passion in this room. And how personal passion works, it makes us do ordinary things excellently well. Personal passion makes us do ordinary things excellently. And I think that's why personal passion is such an important ingredient in all of us. But I don't see many people in HR actually write personal passion as one of the qualities that they recruit for. I don't know if they look for it also. So I think that's something that perhaps they can put on top of their agenda. And why focus? You're master class at masters at multitasking. Why focus? What's the disadvantage of multitasking? Firstly, is it an advantage or a disadvantage? It's both. How many people for both? Okay. Advantage? People for advantage? Hey, less hands for advantage. More hands for disadvantage. Come on. Disadvantage? So everybody's not voting. Okay. You only have these three choices, guys. Okay. Advantage, multitasking, hands. Okay. Disadvantage, multitasking. Okay. And the rest is obviously it's advantage and a disadvantage. Okay. So great advantage. Anybody? Great advantage of multitasking? One, briefly. Advantage of multitasking? Sorry? More experience. Well, it's just a very quick way of dealing with so many issues simultaneously, right? So you're cooking, you're talking on the phone, and what else are you doing? What else can you do when you're cooking and talking on the phone? Watching television. What else? Can you do something else? Sorry? Managing homework. My goodness, Jesus Christ. Hats off to you. Cooking, talking on the phone, watching television, and getting homework done. What is that? Weight management. Your walk. Home ops. Okay. You know what? You can't do your job like that. I'm sorry. You can't be cooking, listening to music, watching television, and tending to your kid. I'm sorry. You can't work like that. So, yes, we pride ourselves on multitasking. Please remember, you're not focusing on anything. You are not focusing on anything. So do the multitasking if it is absolutely essential. If someone is calling you while you're cooking and it's important to take the call, do it. But I don't think it's a great idea to multitask. You do it because you're pushed by circumstance and there are 6 people there demanding your attention. Somebody wants his shoes, somebody wants his breakfast, somebody wants something else. I understand that. But in a job, please focus on what you're doing. Now, just for a moment, I want you to think about this. For some misfortune, you have to undergo a surgery, okay? And the surgeon is there. He's slicing into you quietly, okay? And his wife's, or his girlfriend rather, is on Facebook. Do you want him to multitask, girls? You don't. Okay. So whenever you're tempted to multitask, remember, you don't want someone dealing with you in a critical situation multitasking. Okay? Now, if we looked at everything like that and we said, it's critical for me to give my best to whatever it is, and it's not life critical, I understand that, but it's critical that I give my best to what I'm doing, then it's not a great idea to multitask, okay? Do it one at a time, be quicker at it, be 100% focused on it, and it will get done much faster, okay? We heard wonderful, the Sufi gospel today. It said bowl, right? You have a tongue. How many of you have the courage to speak up with your conviction in a corporate situation? Fabulous. I'm really, really happy to see that. One quick piece of advice. Do it, but be polite. Be mindful. Sorry? Doesn't work every time. And I'll tell you what will happen, and I had this beautiful tag all my growing up years. What do you think that tag was? Bossy? No, something else. What do you think that tag was all my life, growing up life? No. Aggressive. My goodness, not arrogant. I was never arrogant. Aggressive, my goodness. Every time somebody had the opportunity, my boss, you're very aggressive. I said, excuse me? I'm assertive. I'm not aggressive. I'm not fighting with you. I'm expressing an opinion. But often, especially in my time, a lot of men were not used to having women express an opinion or even being there. Even today. So, quick piece of advice, state your case, be as unemotional as you can, okay? Control yourself, control your emotions, state the case, be polite. Don't raise your voice, it doesn't help. Because what is the objective? You want to get your point across. You don't want to stand there and say, I'm the man, look at me, I'm the guy in charge. That's not what you mean. You have a point of view, you want to get the point of view across. Do that in the most effective way. And sometimes the most effective way is not to sound aggressive. I never sounded aggressive to myself, and I was not. But I lived at a time when that was the only tag, the only adjective that went with women. We have now changed that adjective and said assertive and not aggressive, okay? Not bossy, but boss, yes. You can be boss and you should be boss, but you don't have to be bossy. But the men will see you as bossy sometimes, okay? So I think it helps to try to be more effective rather than to be a little bit less controlled vis-a-vis your emotion now. I know a lot of you are passionate, a lot of you feel deeply about the issue, so that emotion tends to come out, okay? And I think one of the worst things that can happen is to cry in front of your boss, if he's a man. Okay? And not because they don't have empathy, they do. It's just that they don't know how to deal with it. They just feel lost. So don't think they don't have empathy, it's they're lost. They don't know what to do. A very important aspect is do all of this, but build partnerships. Co-opt your ecosystem. And what's part of your ecosystem? It's your family, it's your children, your husband, your friends, your neighbors maybe, and certainly your co-workers and people in the organization. And a quick word on co-opting your ecosystem. I think make your family a part of your career conversation. They need to be almost as committed to it as you are, because they will bear the consequences of your absence. And you can't be everywhere. You're not God. So you will be missing for some important occasions, and I think they need to feel that, yeah, it's important, your job is important. You as a person, a full person, is more important to them than just your role as a wife or a mother or an employee, okay? And so what you want in life is as important to them as what they want in life is important to you. So please come to that co-opting of the ecosystem with a lot of love and respect, and try to give more than you get. And there was a very simple principle. I didn't know this principle because I didn't have myself talking to myself in those years, but I came to it as a matter of what I went through, is that it's not always possible to do everything in equal balance, right? So you miss out on the kids' I don't know, parent-teacher day, or one of the matches that he was playing, or a performance that, maybe your daughter was involved in, but you try to make that up to them. So maybe commit the entire weekend to them, or if somebody's sick, you haven't been able to be there for a few days, find the time to spend that time with them when you can. So a very important thing here is one word. How many alphabets? Oh, it's a long one. 8. Starts with a P. Come on, you know it. Yes, brilliant. It ends with a Y, priority. And how many priorities do you have today? Somebody with the highest number of priorities? What's the largest number today? How many? 11 priorities. Anybody with a number larger than that? No number larger than 11. I used to have hundreds of them. You guys are fortunate. You don't have nobody more than 11 priorities. Okay. This is a very evolved group, I must say. Extremely evolved. So you and me have a problem. Absolutely right. You are absolutely right. The word priority means that you don't have 100 priorities. You have priority 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then so on. And do you have to churn that bag? How many times in a day do you churn that bag of priorities? Many times, as many times as is required. But are there some things that always stay on top? Yes, okay. Sometimes they may lose a little bit of importance because something very urgent has come up. So priority is driven by also what is urgent and what is important, right? And sometimes something that is very important has to just wait a few minutes because something that's very urgent needs to get attended. So that's what I call the short term and the long term. But I think it's important because a lot of time what happens is the short term comes and occupies all your time. So beware of that. Don't let that happen. Keep that long term going, because that is what is going to move you from where you are today to where you want to be tomorrow. But the short term keeps interfering and says, attend to me, I'm very urgent, I can't wait. So you need to be a bit careful about how you spend your time tackling the short term in order to keep some time for the long term. And that's the fight between the clock and the compass. And you need to manage that fight many times in the day, always making sure that you keep going back to what is your top priority. Uh, you need to be super organized to do that, isn't it? So I got an offer many years later to go off and do a job in the Nestle headquarters in Switzerland. And I really wanted to go. And so I sat down with the family and I said, this is a great opportunity for me to experience the corporate world in Switzerland, Nestle headquarters, beautiful place. What should we do? So we decided that I will take my kid with me. And the rest of the family, that's my husband and his parents, would stay here. And when I spoke to my husband, he said, right now it seems like a big deal. But if you'd take a perspective, say we live for 65, 70 years. We were somewhere, I think 40s that time. He said, let's take a perspective and say we live for, say, 70 years. What is 3 years in a lifespan of 70 years? It's nothing. So you want to go do it? Just go do it. So the largest piece of the puzzle was that my kid would go with me. Then everything else fell in place around it. Because you can't fit all the pieces. And I couldn't leave her alone at home. She was at an age where you're not allowed to leave children alone at home even for an hour in Switzerland. So, but we went there, the rest of the family pitched in, people came and went. They got 90 days visa. There used to be a rotation cycle between the parents coming and, helping to take care of my daughter there. And I had all the fingers pointing at me. I drove the car, I bought the food, I cooked it, I worked in the office, I dropped her to school, picked her up, and attended to the doctors, to the community tax issues, getting the car serviced, taking visitors, reading the map, cleaning everything was my job. And you have to remember, you can do it. You know why? Why can you do it? Am I a super woman? No. Why can I do it? It was my choice, absolutely. So when it's your choice, you put yourself at the center of that. When you put yourself at the center of that, all these fingers are pointing at you. Okay? And you're up to it. So I think that's the important piece. If you are not up to it, you won't take it on. But if you've taken it on, you will be up to it. And I never regretted a single day. I used to work and do everything else. And I was not sick for a single day in that country. Not one single day. Though we were in the snow and we used to, be everywhere, all over the country, but never sick. So it's possible to do, but you've got to be willing to take the stretch. Okay? I'll conclude by saying that what you need is courage, confidence, and compassion. Courage for what? To take the decision, to make the decision, to make that choice, to make the decision. What happens when you make a decision? It has consequences. You need the confidence to stand by the consequences of having made that decision. And in a work environment and a home environment, compassion, to understand what everybody is going through while those consequences are being played out. And with your team in the office, they will be implementing your decision to understand what does that team go through when it implements that decision. So I think courage, confidence, and compassion. And I just want to tell you that the time is now for you to step up and celebrate and enjoy life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sangeeta. In summation, quickly a few lines. A story that's all about us, of aspiration and inspiration. Building businesses and their stories, and my own as I go. Daring to live up to the dream. Who are we? What are we doing? And why are we doing it? Fame, fortune, family. Learning as you go. Life full of choices that you get to make and owning up to them. Crafting futures, shaping destinies, rising above rejection and staying committed. Knowing you can do it and make it happen. Never a right time and always a first time. When the going gets tough, the tough like us get going. Set the bar high, be a shining star. Roll up your sleeves, get your hands dirty. Focus and passion, the drivers. Put your best out there, get your point across. Stay polite, stay assertive. Do it all, do it as you build partnerships. Take everyone along. Prioritize and be the balance, and go live your dream. So in summation of what Sangeeta had to say, thank you so much, Sangeeta. We have something to give you. Thank you for joining us here today and giving us that keynote. Here you go.
I couldn't have summarized it better.
They'll send it to you. So.